Are you ready? Those are some of the famous words from WWE Head of Creative and former world champion Triple H. Triple H has been a part of some of the most famous factions, namely Evolution and D-Generation X. Triple H has been a cornerstone of the Attitude Era, the Ruthless Aggression Era, and moving forward, the current wrestling era as we know it as part of creative. But in terms of his factions, which faction do you prefer between DX and Evolution? That is what we will be going through today. I start with D Generation X. DX was a faction initially started to protect Shawn Michaels, started by Triple H, China, Shawn Michaels, and if you do remember, Rick Rude. But Rick Rude wasn't actually wrestling, he was Shawn Michaels' insurance policy. And their first feud was against the Hart Foundation. And DX were basically formed to be the Outlaws, the Rebels. Stone Cold before Stone Cold initially. So, they were formed to kind of protect Shawn Michaels against the Hart Foundation every time he was in trouble. And they were mainly centered around Shawn, as Triple H wasn't really the guy back then. Shawn Michaels was WWF champion at the time, and Triple H was on the rise. So this was basically where you could kind of mold Triple H into a star while also preserving Shawn Michaels as the top star in the company. Eventually, they added people such as the New Age Outlaws and X Pac, the 123 Kid himself, and DX grew as a faction in terms of notoriety and moments. They had initial members such as Mike Tyson, who eventually turned on them at WrestleMania, siding with Stone Cold Steve Austin. But he was a part of DX. DX initially came back again in 2006 when it was just Shawn and Triple H, and they feuded with Shane and Vince McMahon. That was a bad feud. And then I'm not going to say when they came back again in 2018 because we do not talk about that feud and that match against the Brothers of Destruction in Saudi. Shawn, we erase that from your career. We understand. We know that match was bad for everybody involved. But I do love DX as a faction. They are great. They are so entertaining, especially with the chemistry that Triple H and Shawn Michaels have. Them two are just phenomenal, and then you add the kind of a law of China, who was basically Rhea Ripley of the time. She was Rhea Ripley before Rhea Ripley was actually Rhea Ripley, and it kind of just molded a whole pop culture that came around DX. As a kid watching wrestling, and you being around the time where DX was an actual faction, you remember going around cropping your like pounding on your crotch and being like suck it to whoever. That got you in trouble, got me in trouble a bunch of times. I cannot lie. I was in trouble for just saying suck it to whoever. Like, it was bad. But this was wrestling. This was DX. They were like the coolest faction ever. They had the music, they had the glow sticks, they had the poses that you will never forget. DX as a faction is one of the coolest factions of all time. I will not say that they aren't, but when they come against Evolution, I feel like they come up second. I cannot lie to you. Evolution just had aura to me. I cannot lie to you. Randy Orton, Batista, Ric Flair, Triple H. This faction was basically a flip on DX. This was the authority before the authority. These were people that were there to protect Triple H. They were there to build up the other two stars in Randy Orton and Batista. and put them to the level where Triple H currently is, and to the level where Ric Flair was at his peak. And this was also a kind of a new version of the Four Horsemen, if you do remember who they are. And this faction was, they might have not had the personality and the kind of glow sticks and all the stuff that DX had, but they had their own aura. They were more a corporate faction. They were heels essentially, but they were great heels. It kind of also built the legacy, quote unquote, hint hint, of Randy Orton and of Batista, because without Evolution, you do not get the Animal Batista, Mr. Muscles himself, the Batista Bomb. You do not get that whole era, and you do not get the era of Randy Orton just being a menace. Because before Evolution, Randy Orton was just a babyface that was smiling and, cuddling kids and all of that. But we know when this man is in his zone, he is one of the most sadistic people out there. Randy Orton will punt kick everyone and anyone, whether it be girlfriends, your dad, your mom, your grandmother, your cousin, sister's friend's uncle. It does not matter. Randy Orton will punt kick you regardless of who you are. And we would not have got that version of Randy Orton without Evolution. And let's not talk about Triple H. Triple H at the time was wilding. He held the World Heavyweight Championship for the longest time. Like, he did not care who you were, what minority you were. Sorry, Booker T. Like, he did not care. Triple H held that title for the longest time, and he could not let that go. The only people that could have beaten him were people in his faction, namely Randy Orton and eventually Batista, who became a star because of Evolution and Triple H. And we wouldn't have got like the version of Batista that ruled SmackDown. You know, he was the face of the Attitude Era alongside John Cena. And we wouldn't have gotten that without Evolution. So for me, I'm going Evolution. Think about it. If you kind of compare the number of world titles between the members of Evolution compared to DX, it's crazy that it's like three times the amount, even if you like remove Triple H from the equation. And the overall just aura of Evolution just trumps the kind of goofiness that happens in DX. And lasting legacy, we will not forget the lasting legacy of both, especially DX. But for me, I will personally go for Evolution as the better faction if I had to choose a preferred faction. People, let me know in the comments, what would your preferred favorite faction between Evolution and DX? And don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Last thing, I've got two words for you. Suck it!